Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Soul Flow Radio with the Philosophy Bros. This is episode 8 already. Can't believe it. I'm just inviting our co-host, VJ, us tuning in, making some time in your very, very busy day, I'm sure, just to be part of this with us. There he is. Hey, VJ, how are you, man?
I'm doing good, man. We both got green in our backgrounds today.
We do. Love it. Where are you at?
I'm in my gazebo in my backyard. Recently, just installed some furniture in here, so this is my
Beautiful.
office. Yeah, it's really gorgeous. Having lots of
Doesn't
time.
it make such a big difference to see some like real life green in like your office space, man? Like to be able to look outside and
Huge,
see a bird?
huge, 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 and there's so many birds around here. It's just like I'm just so fortunate. Is that where are you at?
So I'm in Costa Rica. So we're in Santa
Yeah.
Teresa. We're on top of a mountain. Behind me, you might actually see some howler monkeys like passing by
Yeah,
through the
right.
trees and stuff. So that's where we're at right now. It's a sunny part of the day right now. So just enjoying it, man. On my
Beautiful.
walk, I actually went to meet some new chosen family and whatnot. We're working on some stuff, and as I'm walking down the street, I'm like, wow, how amazing is this that my only like neighbors to the right and the left of me, not passing by me in cars. It's actually monkeys swinging in trees. How incredible is
Ah,
this?
so beautiful, so beautiful. My dad and I
Yeah,
watched Mowgli last night, which is just this like Jungle Book story, and we're just talking about nature and animals and wisdom and how we've walked so far away from it. But here we are, man, sitting in the green.
yeah. We are, man. We are. We're bringing
Yeah,
it back full circle,
yeah.
eh?
Episode
Yeah.
episode 8, man. Here we are. I'm so excited.
Likewise, man. Without further ado, did you want to kick it off with your first question for today?
Sure, we did me last time first, but I'll do it. Yeah, if you feel like I could go first. Is that what
Yeah,
you
go
feel?
for it, man.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, man, I've got 3 or 4 questions. It's always so hard to pick one, but I'll pick one. This day and age, we're finding so much conflict and so many opinions and so many sides to choose. Whether it's pro this flag or that flag or pro this, party or that party or this kind of stuff. So, my question to you is without elaborating too much, is how do you know what battles to pick? And like, where you're in a situation and somebody says something that's either triggering or something that you completely conflict with and don't agree with. How do you know? How do you tap into whether I'm going to choose that battle in that moment or I'm just going to let it go? How do you gauge that? And do you have any wisdom for us?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question, man. I think that this is like a lot of the questions we actually ask one another. I think that my response, like a former version of me, would have had a very different response, which would be that I would have probably kept it to myself. I would have been just very quiet about it. I might have noticed, the shift in attitudes in the room, say, if it's not just us, but I might not necessarily see myself as the best candidate to address that. You know what I mean? I think for a long period of my life, I actually shied away from conflict. And not everything has to be conflict, right? But, even when it comes to sharing that my opinion differs from yours, I would often hold that back. You know what I mean? So what I've seen over time as I've evolved and really gotten in touch with my voice and, connecting more with the things that actually matter to me is I ask myself, I really assess the room and I'm like, okay, with the individuals who are having this conversation, who I'm trying to now or considering communicating this point to, do they even seem capable of receiving this message? And I don't mean it from a me being better than them, you're stupid, I'm not, whatever kind of thing, but more just like you tap into their energy, right? Do they seem like they got walls up or are walls possibly down, right? Are they open to potentially being wrong? This is actually a question that I ask people when I enter into conversations, or I even say it about myself. I say that, you know what, I'm coming in here, and I'm not pretending to know everything, and I'm open to being wrong, right? And so if I don't get to the point where I actually ask, I almost ask and assess for myself, does this person seem like they would be capable of expanding their mindset or even saying, hey, I'm wrong, right? It doesn't have to be so right and wrong, but more about allowing multiple truths to be true at the same time, right? Like that's kind of what life is, right? Accepting that there's a lot of people living their own truth all at the same time, right? So I would I would do that kind of assessment. I would also think about what is my best case scenario when it comes to the outcome here? Right? Like, am I just getting into this right now for the sake of letting out some of that rah pent up, energy that I haven't, let out in sports or in the gym or something, right? Am I just trying to battle, basically, right? Sometimes I think that we need to acknowledge when we're actually in this state where we just want to be in conflict, right?
Mm.
Sometimes we're there. Like, let's be real about it. And sometimes this person who just happens to be sharing this opinion that I disagree about in this moment, they might catch all the smoke for all the people that I didn't feel comfortable enough to actually say what I felt. So, I found that really evaluating that and thinking about that for myself because words are so powerful and we can't take them back, right? Once they're said, they kind of do their thing. And, we can apologize and all that, but you can't unhear words. So I think I'm incredibly mindful coming into these situations to assess all of those things in advance. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of the approach that I've taken. And if the person seems willing and like they might be open to hearing a new insight, a different opinion, all that kind of stuff, I share my stuff. But I don't really go out of my way to make it so that everyone in this room knows my opinion per se.
Mm. I love that, brother. Thanks for sharing. You know, I'll, yeah, I've been struggling with this, in myself, and I appreciate what you said because it's making me see the gray as opposed to black and white. It's
Mm.
making me see that it doesn't need to be. I use the words pick your battles, right? Like it doesn't need to be a battle, right? And so I used to be the guy that used to be the militant, I'm going to tell this person what I think they don't know, and they will open their minds and change
Mm.
based on like 10 sentences that I'll tell them,
Yeah.
Um, and now I'm at the other extreme, I think, where I can't be bothered. I'm like, that I think I've shared this with you. The apparently the Keanu Reeves quote where he's like, I'm at a stage in my life where if someone says 2 + 2 is 5, I'm like, have a good day,
Yeah.
thanks. I'm at that place now where I just like I can't be bothered. Like if you think like this, whatever, I can't. Now I'm not sure that's necessarily great because I kind of like disguise that. Maybe I'm guilty of disguising that under like this whole I'm spiritually evolved, so I don't need to get into a battle because I just know what the truth is and they can just be lost, It's like this
Yeah.
cocky kind of condescending energy almost.
I hear you.
But
Yep.
yeah, but what you're saying I like because there is something in the middle where it's not necessarily about getting into conflict, but rather just voicing what you believe, and not with the intention to get any kind of a result or convince anybody because I do believe that you can't change someone based on a conversation or two. I think it's like they might have to witness you live a certain way and be the change you want to see in the world. They might have to like witness you be a certain way for a while and see that that way is leading you to high vibrations and high abundance or manifestation or whatever, and then they'll be like, well, there's something that he or she or they are saying that's like there's that might be credible there.
Mm.
So I like that. I think I need to work on this. Oh, very importantly, one thing that you did say is read the room and like, is this person in the room just in that conflict space? Are they even in a space to even listen to what you're about to say?
Mm.
And I think that's a skill. I think it's a skill when you walk into a room and you're in a circle of people. Who is here to just be heard? You know,
Yeah.
and they're not ready to listen. Not again, not a hierarchy, not their worst. They're just not in a space and time to listen, to receive. It's just they just want to be heard.
Mhm.
And so, a person like that in that moment, it doesn't really actually matter. And so, I do have to sort of read the room and be like, okay, we're gonna go nowhere with this. And again, I'm not here to convince them, because I
Mhm.
can't, I can't convince
Yeah.
them in the next 15 minutes. And so maybe there's a way for me to develop this ability to simply just read the room and then just share it. By the way, what I think about animal cruelty is this, or whatever, what I think about the political situation in the Middle East is this. I could be wrong, but like it's healthy for me to practice sort of sharing, and I'm working on that. Come from it
Yeah,
from like a humble space, where
for
they
sure.
can almost be feeling like they're helping me grow
Yeah,
in allowing to create that space.
100%. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I really appreciate that. Like I need to be a little less militant on each extreme side, extreme ends of this equation. Yeah,
Mm.
thanks for that.
You're welcome, bro. And it takes time. Like I myself too, I was incredibly militant before, and it's just like, it just wasn't bringing me any type of satisfaction. And whatever interactions I did have, because there's an outcome I'm going for, and oftentimes when you're just approaching it like brute force kind of thing, it doesn't come through, right? And then everyone just ends up more frustrated. But I just want to share with you that a resource that might be really impactful for you is actually checking in with the introverts in those settings, right? And tap into like, hey, they're not just so quiet right now for no reason, right? Like I myself have been an introvert for a lot of my life, and I realized that when I've stepped into certain rooms, there were rooms where I would like say zero words, and I could have been in there for a really long time, and people are like, oh man, why are you so quiet? Like like da da da. And, at that point, I wasn't really able to connect feelings and my actions together. But it was just like, you know what, I feel like in assessing the energy within this room, there's not really people who care about what it is that I have to say, right? They're not necessarily open and receptive. So I'm just going to be here and I'm going to be quiet. And to me, it was like, sure, there's times when I come off as a snob and all this kind of stuff. I keep it real, right? Like it comes across that way. But the bottom line is that I assessed this. I didn't know how to communicate to you that I did an assessment of the energy in this room. And I understand that this is not necessarily a place that I'm going to flourish, right?
Mhm.
So, I think that the introverts have so much knowledge within them if they're given a chance to speak, because oftentimes we're waiting for someone to kind of roll out that red carpet and be like,
Mhm.
hey, what do you think? Right? They're not so forthcoming with their stuff, but we have these sort of built in tendencies and practices that it might even help us connect the dots with and be like, oh, you know what? This is what I was actually doing. You know,
Mhm.
one additional thing I want to share, and thank you so much, Ashta, for your comment there. I love the strategy of checking in with the introverts. And Nalini also commented that this is a skill that she feels she needs to learn as well. A work in progress. It's always a work in progress. But one thing I want to share too is one thing that's helped me to be mindful of how I show up in these rooms, right, is kind of what I use tarot to communicate, right? Sometimes, VJ, you could have said, say, for example, in our relationship, you could have said to me 10 things that, for example, my dad has said to me, right? But because it's my dad, it might be like, oh, this is my dad talking. He's just going to tell me whatever, whatever. And you could come and tell me the exact same thing. And it's like, oh my God, VJ, bro, you're like the smartest person I've ever met, right?
Yeah.
What happened there, right? What
Yeah.
happened there? I missed the message because I was too hung up on the messenger,
Yeah.
right? That's what happened.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we see a lot of these things online say, like, you're going to keep meeting the exact same person in a different body until you learn the
Yeah.
lesson, for example, right? So I think that understanding that I'm not necessarily going to be the best messenger for everybody also helped me to take that pressure off of myself. Like, I'm in this room for 2 hours. My mission is to open up as many people as possible to my way of thinking before I leave. No, I might not be the guy. Someone could come and say the exact same thing that I said and it could go in for you. But you know what? I'm just going to have to trust that that's the way things are supposed to go. Right? I won't be the messenger for everybody. Much like,
Mhm.
we sometimes receive quotes that are shared by, these big influencers and coaches and things like that. It finally goes in that way. But if we go to like, say the person who first came up with it, we might have totally glossed over that forever. Right?
Mhm.
So just being mindful of that I myself too have missed out on certain messages just because of the messenger. And it might have been just because of the title they had. It could have been in the way that they were speaking to me, the words that they used, the tone, so many different things, right? So
Mhm.
I think just understanding that, we're going to impact the people who we're meant to. And that doesn't mean just sit passively and like, oh, the right conversations will come. You gotta go out there. You gotta, mingle, talk, all that stuff, but be discerning, right? Discernment, I think, is at the core of a lot of the things we've talked about through all of these episodes so far. And I think we'll keep talking about it, but I think discernment is more important than ever for us to make sure we have that skill and ability.
I love it. Very, very wise points. And one thing I want to touch on is the messenger piece is like, you're absolutely right. I mean, we will hear our dear friend or close family member say something and we'll be like, whatever. But then we'll pay thousands of dollars to go on a retreat, and the guru there will say the exact same thing, and we'll be taking notes and be like, yeah, you know. But
Yeah.
what I want to bring it back to is that the the messenger that we ignore the most is ourselves, because we also know, we already know the stuff that we are reminded of that we reject. We already know that stuff, and we're the messenger that we ignore the most, I think, you
True.
know? So that there's something there, like maybe we don't need to go on, you know, like outsource this wisdom. Maybe working on like not ignoring that messenger that we are to ourselves. I also want to just offer that there is, without going to an extreme and being in that way, there it is a superpower to hear something that you don't agree with and have it not bother you.
Oh yeah.
Like there, you know, okay, this person is going on and on, and wow, they are, I don't agree with it. From my perspective, they are so wrong. And I do have the ability of holding them in compassion and it not bother me, so that I can proceed with life and take care of myself, knowing that in that moment they're not ready to listen, you know? So in that moment, there's no need to voice it. But I think it's a superpower to be able to walk away and it not eat at us for the next day and a day and a half. Like, oh, I should have said that, or I should have said this, blah, blah, blah. Because they don't know, they don't see it this way, you know? Because we
Hmm.
do that a lot. We like invite a lot of like inner turmoil for no reason. So again, I don't want to say there's like a um just to go to that extreme where I was describing earlier in the call, where it's like I just don't care, whatever, I'm too lazy, you know.
Yeah.
uh yeah, so I think it's there is something there to have that form of zen in us where we hear it, we feel the conflict, and we embrace it, and we, okay, you know, that's okay. You know, it's a
Hmm.
spectrum. It takes all kinds, and I'm just one of many, many opinions that exist. You know,
Right.
yeah. Just reading what, being mindful of our ego because our imposter syndrome can kick in. Yes, I completely agree with
Yeah.
that,
No doubt.
Arvind. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do we feel? Actually, I just want to say I was reminded of this because I was talking to my dad, and my grandfather would always say this in Bengali, but he would always say, "We are not required to correct anybody in
Mm.
life. We're not required to do that, you know." But so many of us go around like
Yeah.
projecting our truth to people.
That's
But
true.
anyway, um,
Yeah.
are we feeling complete? Do you want to share something on that, or do you want
I,
to?
I just have one more thing,
Of course.
on that, if you don't mind, man. I think that
Oh, oh.
something I got caught in, right, for myself is when I would be in these rooms and I wouldn't say anything, even though there's a lot of stuff that I would say disrupt my purpose or my spirit, really, right? And it'd be like, oh, like I'm burnt up. Like I can't hide my emotions on my face. Like anyone knows this, and I've been made fun of so many times because I can't hide my emotions on my face. But, like that's happening. And I kind of just passively let it happen. And then I go home, I'm bothered by it, I say nothing, and cycle continues. So what I wanted to say is that for as much as it's not our responsibility to go around correcting anybody or sharing our mindset per se, sometimes I think in discernment once again for the win, we need to make sure that we're checking in with ourselves because there are going to be those times when because of the way you VJ are structured or the way I'm structured, right? It's going to be that moment where the universe is saying, okay, no, you need to say something in this moment, right? Because sometimes we need to disrupt the really garbage opinions that people have, right? Like, let's be real. Some of us have really formed these very guiding principles off of things we have not done an ounce of research on, right? For example. So sometimes it is our role to go in there and be like, oh, I disagree. And here's why, right? Or you just share yours as well. You don't have to say, I disagree, like as in there's a hierarchy of right and wrong here, right? But sometimes we do need to disrupt that because think about it, right? Like, for example, as men, if no man ever said to another man who's saying, oh, real men don't cry, where exactly would we be right now?
Mhm.
Right? And I think we can take that and apply it to so many different questions and thoughts and whatnot, right? But just that was the one that came to mind. So it's like, you know what, sometimes we do need to rise to the occasion, right? But it doesn't need to be all the time. It's once again balance, I think. And balance is only going to come when we practice that discernment. When we
Yeah.
give ourselves, sometimes if we're super introverted, like anything, sometimes we have this
Yeah.
tendency to swing all the other way to the other end of the spectrum to the point now you
Yeah.
can't shut this person up. And it's like, okay, hang on. Progress,
Yeah.
yes, but realistic, no. Right? So let's bring it back into balance. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to share that because I think that's also important, and I think that was left out of a lot of conversations that I had around my quietness and not using my voice in moments that
Yeah.
still I understood a reaction was happening within me.
Yeah, I agree with that, brother. I believe that I think what you're maybe suggesting, and I've felt it myself, is you keep enough of that truth inside you without expressing it, it can sort of turn into like an energetic, constipated feeling where it's just now it's kind of like not really serving me, you know, and
Yeah,
it's not in service to the greater consciousness, right? What I would add is that yes, all of what you said, I agree. And I would add a layer of also at the same time, don't be attached to it leading to any kind of result, you
that's
know?
great. Yeah,
So absolutely share it. This is a garbage opinion you're thinking that, you know, whatever the case be, I need to share it. I think you're wrong. Here's my truth. Do that. That's healthy. But I think it's the attachment to, well, that person now needs to say X, Y, Z and show me that they've understood and agree with me. And
hmm,
until that happens, I'm not satisfied. I think
yeah,
that's the piece that we can also add to it is like, yes, voice your truth in an eloquent, loving, compassionate, self respectful way. And at the same time, not be attached to it changing the world. Because at the end of the day, I think it's about planting a seed. And the seed will blossom and germinate and blossom in them on their
yeah.
own way in their own time, you know.
Very true.
And I think
Yeah.
all we can do is plant that seed for us, for them, for greater consciousness. So I just wanted to sort of add that.
I love that, man. Thank you. That was a really nice cherry on top of that. And you know, something we did in our last episode that I really liked, and I hope that you know everyone who tuned in got something out of it, was we talked about calling in and calling out, and we actually did a little bit of a role play to sort of share with whoever's listening and who's curious about these types of things, what that looks and sounds like, right? So you know, something in an effort to be useful to our audience this week, you know, something I want to ask you as a follow up to this is you know, what are some ways that, say, we're having a conversation and I don't agree with some of the things that you're saying, right? You know, if you can imagine, put yourself in that scenario, what are some ways that I could communicate to you, hey, BJ, I disagree with what you're saying and I would love to share why. Is there a way that this has been done for you already by someone, for example? We don't need to give a name, but, you know, is there an approach that you found works well when someone does disagree with you and they don't want the conversation to just end there?
Yeah, I think the very, very first thing to do is to listen, is to make sure that the person who is expressing feels complete in their expression. Because if there is a hold on a second interruption, then it's no longer about sharing ideas. It's about who's going to interject when and correct who, right?
Mm,
And so the moment that energy is introduced to the room, I think the listening stops. I think it's, so I feel the first thing is to make sure that that person feels complete. And so what I mean by that is practically they're expressing. If they're not, if there's a pause, instead of go, but here's what I think is like, hey brother, hey sister, do you feel you've shared what you wanted to share about that? Because I've been thinking and listening to what you've been saying, and a few things have come up, and if you have the space for it, I'd love to share what I think, and maybe we can learn from each other,
right.
that kind of thing. So making sure that the other person knows that they have the space and the permission to complete their thought,
Mm,
and also say, please, if I may ask the same of you, like when I do start sharing, just hear me out because I might flow here and there. And coming back to that whole inviting them to actually give you a gift of holding space. So it's like,
Mm,
humble it down, like humble it up or whatever, right? It's like, listen, I struggle with my throat chakra. I struggle with expressing, and I feel safe with you. And there's some things that you said that I may not agree with, and I kind of want to like, share. And I feel safe with you. Are you willing to hold space? There's some stuff that, so almost like come at it from a we're equal as opposed to I'm about to burst your bubble about the truth that you think, and here it
mm,
is, that kind of thing. I think so. Those are the two things: making sure that they really feel complete in their expression, so that you're not introducing like an aggressive conflict or debate energy. And second thing being like make it articulate it so that you're almost asking them to help you out with the
mm.
expression.
Gotcha.
Not as like a charity, but as like empowering them to do something. Uh, Almost they feel like they're being in service.
Yeah,
Um, Maybe
I like
they'll
that.
listen.
Yeah, I hear you. No, I like that. I like that a lot. And
How about you?
one for me, I think is, something that I've tried, and I think this really feeds into your point about making sure that the person feels understood and complete in what they've shared. Is I try, especially if I find it's like, are we really so polar opposite or different in our opinions on this, right? I try and recap it to them and be like, okay, look, I'm really just trying to come from a place of understanding. From what you shared, this is what I'm gathering, and I'm just trying to understand it because it's a perspective very different from my own. Did I get it right? Right? And then they'll be like, yeah, you got this right, you got this right. Yeah, okay, wrong, this, that. Okay. And hey, can I share my 2 cents on it? And I have to be open and willing to hear a no as well, right? Like that's a big key. But I find the recap helps them to really feel heard, not just someone was, half listening, right? It's like, oh wow, you were paying attention to what I was saying, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I find that goes a long way when it comes to that. So, hopefully, for anyone who might find themselves in this type of situation, maybe you're looking for a new tool that you can tap into. Hopefully, you just extracted something from both of us because I think that we have a few different approaches that might be high impact in real time for you. So, check those out. And if you happen to try it, we'd love to hear how it worked out for you. If it was a different outcome, maybe one that's more aligned with what you were hoping for as well. So, do you feel complete
Love.
in that conversation, that question there, BJ?
I do. I just want to like reiterate what you said. And a dear friend of mine is a clinical therapist, and one of the things she does really well is simply reiterate and like paraphrase what I've shared,
Mm,
and it makes me really be like, oh my god, she was really listening to me. Like,
yeah.
wow. And just that feeling makes any like ego driven itch that I have in me to dissipate.
Mm,
It's almost like I don't even need to correct anyone now. I just feel heard. And she may disagree with me. I have no idea,
yeah.
But that's not her role. She's a therapist. She's not there to voice her opinion. But there might be a lot of power in simply feeling heard and like that itch scratched.
Definitely.
Maybe 80% of the time we're not there. We're not interested in correcting anyone. We're just interested in being heard. Who knows? Anyway, yeah,
100%. Yeah, and we have a comment here. Validating is so powerful. Everyone deserves to be seen. Absolutely. I think at the core of a lot of frustration, whether that be as individuals or maybe on a far wider global scale, what we can see is that a lot of people or bodies or institutions that are acting out at times are coming from a place of feeling like they're unseen and unheard. Uh,
absolutely. Yeah.
so I
We're
agree with that 100%.
we're just children. We're still children. I mean, this illusion of being adult and we've got it all. We are all still. My dad's 80 years old and he's still a child that needs to be heard. That is just screaming and saying, "Mom, Dad, like look at me." Like an
Mm,
older brother or sister. Like, look, I'm doing this. At the end of the day, it's like so powerful, just feeling heard and seen, validated.
absolutely. I agree, man.
All right, brother. What have you got on your heart?
All right. Well, I've got one that I think is going to be high impact. It's probably going to be a little prickly, and apologies if the delivery isn't as smooth as I try to land these things. So,
Ooh,
you know, I
juicy.
I did actually reach out to a few of my the females in my network because I thought that their input would be valuable as well. But what I want to talk to you about, man, is and this has come up at several points in my life, right? But I think that one challenge that we as men have, right, is we feel like we are not necessarily the masculine presence or energy in our relationship, right? Sometimes, we get our, for lack of a better word, we bust one another's balls, right? Because, our brother over here looks incredibly whipped, or, just different things happen within the relationship where he doesn't necessarily feel like he's in his masculine energy, right? He feels kind of like I have to suppress that or subdue it or there's no space for it, right? And so, when this happens and this is expressed to me, whether it's through clients, retreats, whatever, or just everyday life, often what comes up is kind of like, okay, well, why is this the dynamic within the relationship, right? And, oftentimes what happens is it comes out that because we have neglected some of our own healing or we just haven't learned certain skills, we aren't able to do a lot of those things that might be classified or viewed as masculine energy source, right? Being incredibly focused and disciplined and the leadership and take care of this and, creating a lot of that structure and stability and consistency, right? We're just not in a place where we can do that for ourselves, let alone anybody else. So I find we often put a lot of pressure on our female partners to then do a lot of the heavy lifting that it's understood or expected, whatever we want to call it there, would be kind of our responsibility, something that we bring to the table, right? And then ultimately what ends up happening is we have a lot of women who end up living with their masculine energy leading, right? Even though deep down, all they want is to feel like they can flow between both because men and women have, masculine and feminine energy, but they want to be able to live more comfortably in their feminine. They don't want to necessarily have to be living in their masculine. But when this conversation comes up around how do we bridge this gap and even talking about masculine, feminine energy, I find a lot of people tune out because like, oh no, I'm just a man, so I only have masculine energy. What are you talking about? And so, there's so many walls to this conversation. And I find we never end up getting to the heart of it and talking about, okay, this is kind of why we find ourselves in this position because such a touchy, vulnerable, potentially like wounding conversation, right? Like, for example, a woman who gets married, she might feel because of what she's seen with her dad and her brothers and how they've led, their families before, I can't trust that. So I need to make sure that I take it all on myself. Right. And even if there's a man in my life, I'm gonna be the one who kind of signs off on the masculine energy input here kind of thing. Right. And so, men end up staying in this disenfranchised state. Women end up staying in this state of overdrive and probably on the brink of burnout more often than we give them credit for because they're carrying both loads now and they're not feeling safe, right? They're not on the receiving end of the safety that masculine, mindful, grounded masculine energy is supposed to provide. So how do we change this? Because I want a different outcome, not just for myself. I want a different outcome for all of these women because I'm going to keep it real, man. Like when they see, when I find a man who does embody that masculine energy in a healthy way does this, I find that what this often breeds is a lot of intimidation versus inspiration. I find that there's a lot of jealousy that then heads the woman's way because like, what did you do to deserve that? Right? I know you don't deserve that. Right? And then it just becomes, it's not a positive thing that we're doing here. It's a very much a drag everybody down kind of thing. So that is my very cautiously landed question. What do you think about this?
So prickly. I love it, bro, man. First thing that comes to my mind is I'll ask you a question. Okay, so you are embodying what you believe to be is a strong masculine presence, and because you're doing that, you are getting comments, and your partner is getting comments that are not favorable. You said jealousy. What did you do to deserve this? Blah blah blah. So my question to you is, because you're getting those comments, does that mean you will stop being the way you are?
No.
No.
I mean, an old me, yeah, maybe an old me, but
Yeah, but
now,
you,
no.
yeah, yeah. So, in other words, you will stay the course, be the strong masculine for your partner, and do what you feel is honorable and respectful, regardless of what people are saying around you, right? So, my answer is It might be a little bit of spiritual bypassing, and easier said than done, is do a little bit of, okay, whatever. Say what you want to say. I'm not going to bend to that. And in fact, maybe what I'll just do is lean in even more so that you may, over time, witness me happy, flourishing, the union being stronger while couples around us are breaking up, et cetera, not. So you sort of become this pillar. You know, anyone that's disrupting the norm is at first looked at as a clown, is at first critiqued, is at first, you know, people are jealous of, confused, all that kind of stuff, until they're the last person standing, you know?
Mm,
And then it's like, well, they were obviously on to something. So that's my sort of spiritual bypassing, do this kind of thing, right? But I do want to lean in on one thing is that be the change you want to see in the world. You know, really, I think that we're at an interesting time where we are redefining what masculinity is, what femininity is. You know, I have a dear friend who is going through a separation right now, and she's a little bit older, and um, they tried to go to therapy, and in therapy she said something like, I don't have a soul connection with my husband anymore. It's been however many years. And he laughed and said, what the F is a soul connection? That's ridiculous. Like, what the fuck? This is bullshit, right? So he's from a generation where expressing feeling, expressing emotions is feminine. It's too feminine, you know? You gotta be this like lion, you know, that like is feeling free and like not feeling free, like void of actually expressing emotion and vulnerability. And so that's changing. That is changing because I do think that more and more men are showing their vulnerable sides and feeling strong in that and being that pillar of calm in a storm that we talked about last episode where you shared about your car tipping over and how you remained calm in that moment of panic, right? So
mm,
I feel to sort of, I don't know. I guess yeah, that's what my answer is that don't steer away from what you're doing and let the people say what they need to say, because at the end of the day, what the reason they're saying those things and seeing those things is because A, they probably want to be heard, and B, it's probably bringing something up in them, you know? It is a jealousy, and when you are jealous of something, you kind of want to aspire to do and want what that person has. That's like the definition of it. It's like, I'm jealous you have that, right? So there's something inherently about being jealous that you like want to get the thing that that person has. So they deep down inside know, I want a man like that, you know? And
mm,
so what did you do to deserve that? Well, maybe subconsciously they're processing that, you know? And maybe there is a shift happening. As
yeah.
long as you're not like, you know, talking down and like shoving a doctrine down their throats, you know? Just
Mm.
be who you are, you know, and you're such a beautiful example. That's what I would say in a nutshell.
I appreciate it, man, and thank you for that. Because like that's stuff that's nice to hear and nice sort of confirmation to sort of stay on the path, But I think that I don't think I did as good of a job at landing this thing as I wanted to. So I want to share kind of as a part two then.
Sure.
How can we, right? How can we really invite more men to step into understanding the work that needs to be done so that they can help the women in their life actually live more in their feminine energy.
Yeah.
Reason being, this is something we go and we complain to our boys when we have a night out. It's like, oh my God, she's just like a man. And like, this is why she's so like cold and abrasive. Like she doesn't want to do this and all these kind of things. Like we have this confusion within us, right? But I think that there's an element missing from the self-reflection around the whys, right? And because, oftentimes what I find is even say if there's a couple who are experiencing this together, they have a hard time communicating that this is what is at play. This is why we are at this place we are at right now. However, they can effectively communicate that to someone outside of their relationship rather well. right? So how can we have this conversation compassionately? Because I know it'll raise the spikes on our back a little bit, right? 100%. But how can we have this a bit more effectively? How can we contribute to some change happening within our own ecosystems? And for anyone listening out there, what do you think are some things that they could do to also invite more of these conversations to actually happen?
I mean, this ties in very well with the first question I asked is the picking battles and when to speak up the thing. And I'll say something, I once or a few times a week, I play tennis with the boys, and we make the comments, and or at least I hear them. And so those are opportunities when we're hearing that, same old bullshit about like chicks or whatever, is to be like to be that one guy in the group that's like, actually no, like I love that my partner's this way or whatever, or like I actually love, doing the dishes or whatever it may be, is to use those opportunities to speak and speak from a place of compassion and strength and uh, give evidence to our brothers that we're not bothered by commentary like that might insinuate that I'm whipped or whatever. It's just like almost be like, did you just say whipped? Is that's so 2000? That's so 1990s. Like did you really just say that?
Mm,
I think it's about conversation. It's really about that, and it's about and it's got to come. I think it's definitely got to come from us brothers. It can't really come from a woman because if a man is in that space they're not listening. So I really do think back to just being the change, being the example. um maybe maybe we need to reach out to some men's groups, and maybe we need to, you and I'm talking, maybe
mm,
we need to like apply and speak at places. By the way, any workshop that I hold, if there's men around, I do voice these things. It's like any opportunity that
good.
I do have, I do share these kinds of things. It's like snap out of that narrative, you know what I mean? It's like not really helping. So I think it's about conversation. It's about conversation and being a certain way, not shying away from opportunities, not shying away from, challenging the boys, so to speak. And yeah, witnessing a shift in their eyes, when you do say something that is like not standard.
Mm, yeah, I appreciate that, man. And we have some commentary here saying men calling out and holding other men accountable, and we got some hand
Calling
claps
in.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting since we did talk about this in our last episode. I think this is one of those type of scenarios where there is also an effective blend of the two, right? Sometimes we do need that hard, intense, like abrupt, in your face type of moment.
Yeah.
But then there's also that time where we need that compassion, right? And something that I've really said to the guys as I've tried to bring these things up more over the course of my lifetime is like, look, I just want to keep it real with you. I'm just trying to save you a trip on that chair after your wife has said, I'm not putting any more effort into this. I'm just trying to point something out to you because I care about you and I know
Yeah.
that this is something that you care about as well.
Yeah.
And you might not be seeing it. So I just want to share this with you. Right. And
Yeah.
once again, we have to be open to them not wanting that info. Sometimes we do see that as a bit of intimidation type thing when someone is trying to tell us something about our relationship. But I think that if we again have discernment, if we trust our ecosystem, right, we'll have an understanding that they're coming from a place of love and just trying to empower us with as much knowledge as is possible, right, so that we can really make those best decisions and hopefully look back with less regret because someone said something, right? So
Yeah.
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 All right.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I'm just thinking back at like a practical example. I'm with the boys. We're you know, let's say having a beer or something like that, and one of them says something like, "Oh, I'm so glad I got some time away from the wife. Like if I were home, I'd have to be like listening to what clothes she wants to wear for next week's whatever, right?" In that moment, instead of being like, "Yeah, dude, cheers," being like, "Wait, like I don't know about you, but I kind of like enjoy the fact that
Mhm.
she chooses me to like, explore what clothes she wants to wear, and she wants me to like what she's wearing. That's a win. Like that's a win, dude.
I agree, man.
And like, what's up that you have to escape? You know, it's like, I kind of like miss my partner right now. I wish she was here. Be that person that just like disrupts it instead of being like, yeah, rah, I
Yeah.
think that's what it is. And like, enough of this, like, putting the feminine down, like these behaviors down in amongst other boys, like,
Mm.
enough of that. It's old news.
Yeah, I
uh,
agree with you, man. And I love the example that you used about the clothes. And the reason for that is actually, I think it's about a couple of weeks now. We were in a shop and Suki was looking for a dress. And, I love going shopping with her. I hold her bags, I hold whatever she wants to try on, this and that. So she can just go be free and do her thing. And she went into the change room, and I'm sitting there. I'm just like so excited for her to come out. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? Like, I really am enjoying this moment, and I can tell that the two women who work in the shop, they're looking at me and they're like, this is kind of cute. Like, this guy's actually like here with his partner, this and that. But like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, there are a lot of guys who would just hate their life in this moment. Like, oh my God, I'd rather be at
yeah,
home watching the game or something, or anything would be better than this.
yeah,
And then I was like, you know what? Like, I've never been of that mindset. But then, guy, like, what if you happen to be at home watching the game? You ran out of beers and you need to go grab some. You walk by a store and you see it's another man who's sitting on the couch watching your wife come out of that dressing room to ask, hey, how do you think I look? Then what?
exactly,
you
exactly,
know?
exactly. Yeah, and wouldn't you once in a while while you're sitting at home watching the game, wouldn't you maybe want your wife to be like, "Hey, like, did you see that shot? That was amazing," like, or whatever. It's like you feel validated in the things that you like doing by your partner.
Mhm.
And that's a win. That's got to be a win. And if you hate it all, then like there's deeper issues. You know what I mean? Like,
Agreed. I think we invest a lot of time into looking at a lot of very relatively unimportant things. We really deep dive into sports statistics of, how many goals people historically score on
yeah,
Thursdays between the second and third period. Like, we'll know that information, but we
yeah,
won't know fine details about our partners, right? And,
yeah,
because we don't make the time to pay attention.
yeah,
And I always remind folks, like, look, guys, like, you're on the same team, man. Like, just remember that at the end of the day, like, you're really operating like you're not.
yeah.
So
You
let's
really
remember
are.
that.
Exactly, exactly. And like, we understand teams when it comes to the NBA and what it takes and what, but somehow we sometimes forget in partnership. Question: how do men navigate it when it's an older generation?
Hmm.
Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah. Um, hmm. For me, historically, it's been the whole respect thing. Being Guyanese, respect is like one of the quick draw words that are used on you to silence you. So often that word will be thrown out, like you're being disrespectful. But what I've done more over time is I really invite them into what I'm doing. I kind of actually outright ask them what their problem is, right? Like, I saw your face do that thing. What was that thing? Why? Like, there's other people in this room. They surely saw you too. Why? Like, I actually ask them because, like we were saying earlier, sometimes people need to disrupt trash thoughts, and because they haven't been disrupted at any point, they just think that, oh, I'm right. No one's saying anything in opposition to what I'm saying, so I must be right, right? And so sometimes we just need to shake them out of that. Now, it's not always going to work, but if I'm being honest, I think that what I've really noticed about the generation I'm growing up in is we stopped trying to win over the older generation. And as brutal as this might sound, I think a lot of us are kind of just waiting for the older generations to die off so that they can stop taking up space because they're standing in the way. That's kind of what it is for real to me.
Right.
So I think that it's, again, pick your battles, a bit of discernment. What's the reality of what I imagine based on the history of my interactions with this individual? Are they going to be willing to listen to me? Right now, at the end of the day, a lot of the older generation, I find they kind of just say, that change stuff, that's for the younger people. You guys go do your thing. So that's what I have seen. Right. So they check themselves out, and I'm like, I have a personal principle that I've had to really apply hard, which is that I cannot care more about you and your performance in life than you care about it. So I let myself off the hook at that point, right? That's how I have dealt with it. How about you, Vijay? Like, what's alive for you in that one?
I mean, what you said, right? My dad always says one of the greatest things about humanity is that human beings die. Like it just it just it just allows for so much growth. You know, he always says that. Uh, you know, I agree with everything that you've said. What I'd love to add is that maybe what's more important is to realize that we one day will be the older generation. And so
Mm,
how can we show up when we are the quote unquote older generation? Because the
mm,
present day generation, they're sad to say their time is limited and they will pass. And so we will take on that role. And so how can we show up knowing this today, having these conversations, having this awareness, can we again, broken record, be the change we want to see, you know?
mm,
So when
mm,
we're older, I'm not far from it, but when we're older, you know, are we going to be open to witnessing the change and more flexible? Because yeah, new stuff is going to come up then too. You know what I mean? Like there's going to
for
be
sure.
transitions, and we are evolving, and consciousness is evolving. You know, so yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. And I was just with one of my brothers this morning. We were just talking, and even he was saying, I find that something I hear more and more amongst our generation, right, is that parents are seeing and understanding that they have a lot that they can actually learn from their kids if they watch and listen and give them an opportunity to teach them. So I feel like we're really moving more in that direction.
yes,
Where more of the older generation is already going to have the muscle memory of being curious about things versus just
yes,
shutting it down and being like, that's just a new age thing. Like that's for you young people kind of thing. I find we're doing a bit more of that. And I think that also with just where the world seems to be at, more of us seem to be really allowing ourselves to connect with that inner child and stay curious and young more in soul. It's no longer about what's the number attached to my body and that's what my spirit is kind of thing. Right? We have more of that younger energy where we are more curious and playful longer, I find. So I think that that's also going to go a long way in having these conversations and helping them to be open. More of us as we get older. I imagine that the ratio of success for these different conversations, I think, will be relatively higher than the generation before us, and I think that we got to see that as a win.
completely agree, completely agree. Love it.
Yeah.
That
So
was a really good one.
no, I enjoyed it too. Where are we at for time, man? How are we doing on our time here?
Good. We're almost at an hour. We could maybe
Okay.
wrap up this episode, and I mean, there's so much more we could talk about, man.
Yeah. No, I would
Yeah.
I would love
How are you
to.
feeling? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. These conversations just feel like they get shorter and shorter every week. I just find myself hungry to keep going with you, man.
I know. I know. It's time just flies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to bring
But
something else up that's really loud for you?
for me, I think this other one that's on my heart today is one that would probably require a little bit more time than we might have. So, do you have
Okay.
one that you don't that's on your heart that you
Same.
want to bring forward?
Same thing. It's a big one. It's a big one. So maybe we'll leave that for another episode. But thank you so much for your kind words, everyone that's tuned in, and we would love to explore subject matters that are important and alive for you. It's very important that we also get feedback because I know that both Josh and I feel through these questions throughout the week. And if some of you who are tuning in for the first time, we don't share these questions with each other in advance. They're just like sort of real time. And so whatever we're expressing is our truth. It's not pre planned or anything like that. So if you do have any questions that you want to talk about that you feel is important, um, for us men to bring up and talk through, please do so.
Yeah, no, that absolutely. And that goes from everybody. Everyone is invited to give us that feedback. This is not just about men. The bottom line is, yeah, sure, we're two men talking about these things, but these are very human things that we're talking about. And
Yes.
the things that we talk about extend beyond just impacting us, right? It impacts our entire ecosystem, which is made up of everybody. So, we really want to hear from you. Sometimes we understand these topics can be hard to bring up, right? So sometimes sending a video over to somebody or saying, hey, you should check so and so out, or something like that. That might be a little bit of an easier way to break into that type of conversation. So by all means, allow us to be a resource for you. These conversations are just as much
Yeah.
for us as they are for you out there in the community. So
Yeah.
whatever concerns you got, drop it in our comments, send us private DMs, and we can talk about that. We can understand how to explore that and really take that further. Yeah. Something you
And
want to say?
share. I was gonna say share with men. You know, like we want our brothers to hear these conversations as well. You know, and so share with everybody, but like share
Yeah,
with some men.
definitely. Definitely. And something I think that might be helpful, VJ, is if we shared both of us like the offerings that we have,
Yeah.
available to everyone, and how they might possibly help, depending on where a person finds himself at. So, everyone, for example, next Thursday, I actually have a virtual workshop that's going on. It's actually being hosted by the South Queens Women's March, and they're based out of New York.
Oh,
And they
nice.
actually asked me to lead a workshop around healthy masculinity and
Oh,
navigating that.
nice.
Yeah, so that's happening from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. So you can register for that. There's a link in their bio. I have it posted on my page, so you can actually, connect with the link there as well. There's no charge for this, and everyone is invited. Okay, this is where we're having a very open conversation around some of the pillars of masculinity and how we can start to shift some of these things so that more of us can feel more alive and fulfilled and really love the life that we're living in real time. Outside of that, you can connect with me for online tarot readings. Tarot I use as a tool for you to really connect with your intuition. And as we mentioned in this conversation, it's about receiving a message and not getting so hung up on the messenger, right? That's what it allows us to happen in that session. So oftentimes we as men, we might hesitate to have a space where we can just talk openly and freely and work on things. That's exactly what you get in a tarot session with me. And that's open to anybody to book those sessions. Another offering is the self-mastery consulting sessions, which are one-on-one, perfectly curated to you and the situation, circumstance, thing that we're trying to champion. I create action plans around that. You get different things like writing prompts, meditations. You get different resources and videos and all those kind of things tied specifically to what you're working on. So for example, we go all across the board. This combines my lived experience. Okay. So we can do things like fitness training. We can talk about effective communication, relationship challenges, navigating things when it comes to your corporate career and getting, say, a promotion or tweaking your resume, all those kind of things. There's really nothing that's off the table. So I encourage you to ask me questions about this because these are things that can positively impact you. In addition to that, there's going to be a whole bunch of online offerings that you see. There's distance Reiki that's available. We also do sound healing. We prefer to do that in person, but we are working on figuring out how we can actually accommodate that across time and space. And the final thing that's actually going to be officially announced next week is a men's circle that I'm starting, and it's online, and it allows us as brothers to get together and really
Nice.
just talk and open up, right? That's our space, our time. And once again, it doesn't have to feel like you're sitting on a therapist's couch where it's just like, oh, tell me, how does that make you feel? It's not one of those things, right? It's very much interactive. It combines kind of that emotional outlet, that social outlet. It kind of brings it all together because we all know that we're busy and, funds are limited. Let's keep it real, right? Everyone is in a tight spot. So this is all about accessibility and making it easy for you to actually connect and build your network so that you feel more safe and supported because we all need community. Let's keep it real. So, that's kind of what I have in the works at this time. So I encourage you to ask me questions, get in touch with me. VJ, what do you have lined up for the people that, they might really resonate with that you're offering lately, man?
Everybody listening, I highly recommend working with Josh. Please do
Thank you.
it. um, As for me, I offer retreats. So my business partner and I, Stephanie, offer a wonderful 1 week retreat in Guatemala. The next one is happening on the 8th of March to the 15th of March. And Josh was actually there. Suki was there as well. It's a 1 week long plant medicine retreat where we really shed all our layers and find so much love and wisdom within and without, just connect as a community. It's a beautiful experience. I also offer workshops throughout the year, online as well as in person. I also am a holistic business coach. So if you're looking at revamping your either revamping your business or you're thinking about starting up a new business, I bring science and spirituality into the same basket and empower people to do what they love uh, for the sake of loving what they do instead of money or abundance in that sense, which eventually leads to manifesting what you want. So I offer that um, as well. And then just one thing that I just love doing is music. And so I'm part of a band and we offer kirtans in Ontario twice a month. So if that's only for people that are kind of around here geographically. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome, man. You know what, everyone, I recommend that retreat that VJ mentioned that him and Steph host that's happening in March. It's absolutely spectacular. And I don't endorse, I have not been paid by anybody, none of those things, okay? But if you really actually create something that speaks to me and changes my life, I will tell you about it. And this is one of those things that did exactly that. Okay, so
Wow.
honestly, you can check out, I did leave a video review of the retreat. I believe you can find that on Space of Love, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah.
And also, if you have any questions around it, right? Some of the stuff you might be doing in that experience might be brand new to you, and you might just want to like talk to somebody about it. I just count me as a resource that you can reach out to and be like, "Hey, Josh, what was that kind of like?" Because that's where I met VJ. That's where I met Steph. That's where my life changed profoundly. I got a lot of
Uh-huh.
clarity. I got a lot of peace. And, I got to experience some things in my life that I never thought I would get to experience. And one of those things is the pure love that comes from you guys and the way that you hold space so safely. So, I encourage everyone to do whatever you can to find yourself in that retreat because you'll remember it for the rest of your life, truthfully.
Wow. Thank you so much, brother. And we got this out of it.
We did. Yeah, 100%, right?
So good. So thank you so much
Awesome.
for your kind words and support,
Yeah,
bro.
absolutely. Well, to everyone who tuned in today, gave us, love in the comments, we appreciate you so, so much. If you're watching this on the replay, which you posted to our feeds, we'd love to still hear what you have to say. We're always looking for that feedback from the community. So please let us know what you loved, what you learned. We want to know more about how we can be in service to you. And if there's certain, events that you're doing that you'd love to have us at or, participate in some way, shape, or form, reach out to
Yeah.
us. We're evolving all the time. We want to flow and we really just want to live in our purpose and be in service. So, however you think we can make that happen, reach on out. Let's see what's possible. And until next time, bro, I got tons of love for you and I appreciate all you've added to my life. And, looking forward to episode 9.
Likewise, my man. Love you so much. And love you
Love you too,
all
bro.
tuning in so, so much. We'll see you next week.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Okay. Bye.